the summer of 2018, in the Rayalaseema districts of southern India, the rain simply did not come. Groundnut fields went the color of ash, and on some plots the crop stood green, not irrigated plots. The same rain, the same soil, the same brutal sky. The difference was a bucket, 10 kilos of cow dung, 10 liters of cow urine, 2 kilos of jaggery, 2 kilos of pulse flour, and a fistful of soil taken from under an old tree, stirred into 200 liters of water and left to ferment for 48 hours. It costs almost nothing. It treats about an acre, and in Andhra Pradesh, roughly 1 million farmers now use it instead of buying fertiliser. This is the largest agroecology experiment on Earth, and the question it is quietly answering is one that has haunted agriculture for 60 years. Can you take away the fertiliser bag without taking away the harvest? To understand why this matters, you have to understand what a bag of fertiliser actually is in an Indian village. It is not an input, it is a loan. The Green Revolution arrived here in the 1960s, and it did what it promised. India stopped importing grain. Yields doubled. Famine as a policy problem went away, but the package came bundled. Hybrid seed you buy each season, nitrogen you buy each season, and when the pests adapt, pesticide you buy each season in rising doses. By the 2000s, in cotton districts across the Deccan, the arithmetic had inverted. Input costs climbed faster than the price of the crop. To plant, you borrowed. To repay, you had to plant. Andhra Pradesh became one of the epicenters of India's farm debt crisis. And a bad monsoon did not just mean a bad year. It meant a debt that outlived the harvest. So the obvious fix presents itself. Go organic. Ban the chemicals. Certify the produce. Sell it at a premium. Everyone wins. Except that fix has a track record, and it is not good. In April 2021, Sri Lanka banned synthetic fertilizer imports overnight across the entire country by decree. Rice production fell by roughly a fifth in a single season. Tea exports collapsed. Within 18 months, the policy was reversed, and the country was in economic freefall. The lesson was not that natural methods do not work. It was that soil biology is not a switch you flip. Take away the nitrogen before the soil can make its own, and the crop starves in the gap. Which means the real problem was never chemistry. It was the transition. Somebody had to hold a farmer's hand across the gap in his own field for the 2 or 3 seasons it takes for the biology to come back. No agriculture ministry on earth has enough extension officers to do that. Andhra Pradesh had something better, and it had been sitting there for 20 years. Vijay Kumar Thallam had spent his career in the Indian Administrative Service building it. Not an agriculture program. Poverty program. Through the state's rural poverty mission, he had helped organize millions of village women into self-help groups, 10 or 12 neighbors who save together, lend to each other, and meet every single week. By the 2010, those groups federated upward into village organizations and district federations, covering, in aggregate, most rural households in the state. It was, without anyone quite calling it, the densest trust network in India. In 2016, Andhra Pradesh set up an agency called Rithu Sadhikara Samstha, the Farmers Empowerment Corporation, with Vijay Kumar at its head. Its insight was almost embarrassingly simple. Do not build a new delivery system for natural farming. Run it down the rails the women already built. The agronomy came largely from Subhash Palekar, a Maharashtrian farmer and agriculturalist who had spent decades codifying a fertilizer-free method. The state adopted his practices, then quietly renamed the program. It had been called zero-budget natural farming. It became community-managed natural farming. That word, community, is the whole engineering story. Here is what the method actually does. First, coat the seed in a fermented dung and urine slurry called bijamrutham, so it germinates already colonized by the microbes it will need. Second, jivamrutham, the bucket from the opening. It is not a fertilizer. It is an inoculant, almost no nitrogen in it. What it carries is a living culture of soil microbes, poured in with the irrigation water. Those microbes do the work the fertilizer bag used to do. They pull nitrogen out of the air and unlock the phosphorus already sitting in the soil, chemically bound and unavailable. The nutrients were always there. The workforce had been poisoned. Third, keep the soil covered, never bare. Crop residue, mulch, living plants, anything that stops the sun from cooking the top 4 inches to sterility. And fourth, the rule that does the heavy lifting, 365 days of living roots. There is no fallow season. Something is always growing. Because the microbes are livestock, and livestock have to be fed. That leads to the technique that turned out to matter most in the drought. They call it pre-monsoon dry sowing. Weeks before the rains, farmers sow a mix of 15 or 20 species into bone-dry ground. Cereals, pulses, oilseeds, greens. Then they wait. When the first shower falls, a conventional field is still being ploughed. A dry-sown field already has roots in the ground and takes the water instantly. Days of moisture that would have evaporated get captured instead. None of that is the hard part. The hard part is convincing a man with a loan against his land to try it on next season's crop. So the program almost never sends an official. It sends a neighbor. Farmers who have already made the switch are trained as community resource persons and paid to walk their own village, plot by plot. The method of persuasion is not a leaflet. It is 1 acre. Try it on a single acre, keep the rest as you always have, and look at both in April. And the Self-Help Group Federation carries the risk that the individual farmer cannot. Weekly meetings become the training venue. Group credit covers the transition year. Nobody is asked to gamble alone, which brings us back to 2018 and to the drought, because that was the year the argument stopped being theoretical. Field assessments from that failed monsoon found natural farming plots holding on where neighboring conventional plots simply died. More organic matter and permanent cover meant the soil held water for longer, and the roots were already down when the rain came. Then the independent evaluations arrived. The Council on Energy, Environment and Water, a Delhi research institute, and agricultural scientists at Acharya N.G. Ranga Agricultural University ran the comparison. The finding that keeps repeating: participating farmers cut their per-acre input costs by roughly 40 to 60%, while matching or exceeding conventional yields. Cost down by half, yield flat or better. Net income rises by double digits, not because they sold more, but because they stopped buying. And the co-benefits are not decorative. Less pesticide means fewer poisonings among the people doing the spraying, who are overwhelmingly women. Diverse plots mean the family eats from the field, not only from the market. Now, the honest caveats, because a story like this attracts believers faster than it attracts evidence. Natural farming is more labor-intensive, and labor is the one input rural India is steadily losing to the cities. Preparing inoculants takes time that a fertiliser sack does not. It needs cattle and dung, and not every household has either. Early adopters are self-selected, which flatters any comparison. And the agronomic debate over whether yields hold at national scale across every crop is genuinely unresolved. The program's own answer to that is the thing I find most convincing about it. It has never asked anyone to convert everything. It asks for 1 acre, and it lets the field make the argument. That patience is why the numbers are where they are, on the order of 1 million farmers, something like 1.5 million acres. Thousands of villages, built 1 acre at a time on a network of women that existed before anyone thought to use it for soil. The state's stated target is 6 million farmers by 2031. Effectively, every farming household in Andhra Pradesh, and delegations now come to look. From other Indian states, from Ethiopia and Kenya, from the UN's own agencies, because Andhra Pradesh has produced the one thing agroecology has always lacked. Not a philosophy, a delivery mechanism. Sri Lanka tried to change agriculture with a decree and lost a harvest. Andhra Pradesh is trying to change it with a weekly meeting, a neighbor, and a bucket of fermented dung. So far, the bucket is winning. If you want the receipts, I have put them in the link in the description. The CEEW and ANGRAU evaluations, the district-level cost and yield figures, and the working breakdown of how the self-help group federations actually carry the transition risk. That last part is the transferable bit. It is the part every other country will need.